welcome to Walk the Talk, our virtual food summit. I'm your host, Emily King from Spira, and in this interview, I'm speaking with Gretta Carney. She runs Happy, and she applies a Hua Parakore framework to all of the work that she does. We're going to move on now to our next speaker, who is the living embodiment of this. I think she's in her kitchen right now.
Yeah. She's
Are you
coffee.
there, Gretta?
Yeah.
I'm
here. Kia ora.
Yeah, kia ora. Okay, Gretta, I'll just dive right in there. Where are you and what is it that you do?
Kia ora koutou, te ati haunui, a paparangi te iwi, ngā te pamoana, te hapu, ko Gretta Carney a hau. I'm in Ahuriri in Kahungunu territory, and I'm in my kitchen, our kitchen, and I suppose I could even there's a cafe out there, there's lots of people.
Live, living example of what Kate was talking about. Beam in live, where you are.
Yeah. I just wanted to give a mihi to the previous speakers. I've been trying to follow everything in the midst of, we've got people down with COVID, but it's just some great koreroi, and just so much amazing work going on in this space, and I'm just actually really excited after being kind of working in the space for my whole life to feel like we're really starting to shift the narrative. So it's just great that these kind of events are happening, so thanks to Emily. We are doing it. That's what I wrote. I was like, Clean Kai in action. We're a cafe, we have our own marakai. We have a production kitchen, so we've got a whole lot of products sitting on shelves that we make fresh. We go to farmers markets, we've got a web store. We make everything from scratch with organic ingredients. I think how we fit into the food system is we just try to be a loudspeaker. We try to amplify, we try to be cheerleaders for the Hua Parakore kaupapa, for the Clean Kai movement. That's our role.
No mean feat. That's
hard work.
It's kind of a model of food, actually, the happy model. Like I see it, when I think of it, some people might think of gate to plate and beyond. Perhaps you want to speak through how it works, because those things you listed, there's quite a lot of steps in that process. Maybe with the marakai starting there. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I think the main thing that differentiates us is that we use organic ingredients, and we make everything from scratch, and I guess we're quite affordable, so we try to provide just an everyday kind of food service. So I guess in the words of organic, the whole organic systems, we're an organic food system. So we have, entry points into our system, like our suppliers, and then there's this whole living, breathing entity that happens, and then there's products going out, but we're interconnecting with other organic food systems. And that's a concept that I first heard at the iPhone conference in India, where the iPhone, the International Organics Movement, started to move away from a focus on certification towards this idea of identifying food systems where we've got, all the different components are being catered for within that system, rather than individual producers or farmers being certified. We're wahine driven. We've kind of made that a thing in the last couple of years. It was kind of obvious, but we've kind of just owning it. We're Māori business, and we're kaupapa driven. So I guess what underpins Happy or every day is the kaupapa of Hua Parakore that we identified right at the start before we opened the doors, and we made up these beautiful mandalas for each of our kaupapa, and we exist to serve those kaupapa, and that's really the heart of our system. So we try not to compromise. Those kaupapa are our guides, and so the marakai really just came about because we couldn't get organic produce. And so we were like, okay, we're obviously going to do this ourselves. And that's kind of a lot of the time what happens. It's like, oh, well, we'll just have to do that ourselves because you can't get something that's appropriate. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And so, but I also see complexity in there because, you can't get it, so you are doing it all yourselves. So how does that work? And what are the challenges with that?
So, okay, that's a good, okay, so an organic system is inherently complex, and that is the inherent difference between an organic Hua Parakore system and our industrialized, commercialized, reductionist systems. Holism is complex and interconnected. And so I sat in once, there was an Argos project in Christchurch. It was an organic research project. And one of the presenters had done mind maps of organic farmers and non-organic farmers, and of their thought and their decision-making processes. And what you saw was, the decision-making processes for the organic farmer were just like, it was huge. There were so many considerations at every aspect. Whereas the non-organic farmer, the conventional farmer, there were far fewer decisions to be made. And I guess that's the nature of an organic system. So I asked our team to be really responsive and to be really independent and able to make decisions on the spot, because there isn't always an obvious decision to be made. We have to be making it up.
You're innovating as you go with that as well.
We're innovating as we go, because we're fermenting, because we're working with living food. It's like, is that cheese ready? Well, actually, maybe it's not. Like last week it took one day, and now it's taking 2 because the environment's different. Yeah. We have to be intelligent, and that's what I think is the other the differentiating factor, is that holistic, organic, Hua Parakore systems are the intelligence of the operators, the people. We're not relying on quick fixes or band-aids. We're having to use our inherent divine senses, as Matua Percy would say.
For acknowledging as well. So how do you communicate this to people, like on a practical level, as a practical food business owner that you are?
Well, I just think by doing and being, that's we do all the necessary things like the social media, and we have the website, and we go to farmers markets and we talk to people, but I think at the end of the day, the food speaks for itself. People will say, oh, that's the best broth, or this is the best this, or and I think that's the kaupapa. It's not us, it's not what we're doing, it's the fact that we are honouring these kaupapa and carrying them. And so I think at the end of the day, the kaupapa is the amplifier. When we're doing things correctly, it speaks for itself.
And I guess it's probably difficult to compare, because you are a unique setup, but this is walking the talk. I mean, you are doing it all day, every day. But how can we, or what do you think about ensuring other food businesses will walk the talk with what they're doing?
It's a lot of work. And you kind of, like what you find in Hua Parakore or organic, not so much Hua Parakore, there's Hua Parakore food systems about people reconnecting with ancestral, tipuna, with the traditional ways of doing things. Hua Parakore is an act of tino rangatiratanga. Organics, on the other hand, is a alternative to conventional ways of doing things, and generally people have health crises that lead them to doing that. So, I think, what am I trying to say? What was the question again? I got lost.
You can get lost and talk about that, because that's also important. Just walking the talk, like ensuring.
It's hard. It's really hard, and there's not enough people doing it because it's hard. And so you have to be really internally motivated. So the people who've had health crises, they know that it's worth the effort, and they all report that they're so much happier and they're healthier and they feel better about what they're doing. And and Indigenous producers who start working with Hua Parakore feel a real sense of satisfaction in doing things correctly, and in maintaining ngā kaupapa and ngā tikanga, and having ngā hua that reflects, the same kind of quality and integrity of our people from, a long time ago. So I think people, it's sometimes people will say, oh, but you're doing it for the money, aren't you? Because, you're running a business. I'm like, I just don't know what to say. Like, obviously I wouldn't be doing this for the money, like you've got to be really internally motivated. So, and that's where Hua Parakore is so powerful, because it's a cultural practice, and so you're maintaining a cultural practice, and that's a really good driver,
Earlier, Floris knew who was speaking.
Yeah,
you did, yeah. Okay,
so, it was amazing, yeah,
and taking that and applying it in Samoa. So amazing connections there as well across it, I think.
Well, and Hua Parakore, because I was fortunate enough to be part of the development team for Hua Parakore. I project managed a lot of it, and the kaumatua. So I got to work with all the founding kaumatua, and it was always their vision. Hua Parakore is a cultural korowai to this concept of organics, and it can be picked up by any Indigenous people throughout the world to produce pure, uncontaminated kai by simply upholding the kaupapa or the values passed down through the generations and maintaining the tikanga that have been passed down through the generations, the practices of doing something well.
Gretta, we got a question here from the audience for you regarding your strength in local interdependence. Do you think the traditional hapu network could be the basis for local circular economies?
I did some work on developing a kai whakaora, a local Indigenous food economy. It was a really amazing project, and what we kind of came to, and I did want to talk about this today, was this idea that back in the day we ate a lot more simply, so we have really huge expectations now of what we can eat in a given day, but back in the day we fed each other. Like, everyone grew something or gathered something or harvested or produced or preserved. So everybody had their role within the kai economy, which is kind of, I think, what Rangi Māori, the bits that I managed to catch, was saying. Everyone had their role and everybody contributed, and the food was shared. And when there was kai needed, the kai would come, like the fish would run. There was always, we did a lot of interviews. We did 40 interviews here in Kakanunu, and the kōrero was all around the plentifulness of kai and how everybody just shared kai. It wasn't purchased, it was shared. And so I think that's the food model we need to be working towards. And I was part of the He Whenua Rongo Hui that was a couple of months ago, and there was this vision shared there of like just small market gardens, like a landscape of small market gardens where everybody's producing something, and we have an abundance. Like, that's completely within our grasp, but we do all have to play our role, and we all have to find that internal motivator to drive us to work hard. And I think our culture tells us, the culture that we're surrounded by tells us that life should be easier, it should be convenient, we should have all of these luxuries that that's what we're being told all the time. So to choose kind of to do things the hard way, to produce something that's inherently healing. And I think that's the other, a Hua Parakore kai is healing. When you bring the kaupapa together, you have food that's inherently healing. And our kaumatua on that project would talk about how for something to be rongoa, it has to be Hua Parakore. But if it's Hua Parakore, if a kai is Hua Parakore, then it is a rongoa. But then also a kōrero can be a kai. So this idea of everything can be rongoa, it can be healing, we can live in this well-being, but we have to do the work, really. That's probably my main thing,
right?
Yeah, we do. But it can be fun, like it's satisfying. And I think that's probably my mantra, we can work hard, but we can actually really enjoy it and be really satisfied with our outcomes.
Thank you for your hard work and the information.
For our team, oh my God, we've got such an amazing team. Young women work hard. Yeah, very cool. Hospo people are hard workers, so by nature, and farmers too.
Yeah.
And
the commitment to your tikanga as well, right?
That's right. Well, it takes there's a whakatauki that I can never remember, but in Te Reo Māori, but it was like a rock in the ocean forced by the waves. Vigilance. What is it? Vigilance is the liberator. Basically, Percy, right at the end, he threw that into the slides. He's like, we need to have this. And it was like, we have to be vigilant. We have to hold strong. Like, this is never going to be easy, maintaining all of this. We're always going to have to strive to be these people. Yeah.
Thank you.
These people who uphold. Yeah.
That was Gretta Carney, owner of Happy and practitioner of Hua Parakore throughout her mahi, from her marakai, her garden, right through to her restaurant. I'm Emily King from Spira. I'm your host, and thank you for joining us in this interview. Please find the rest of the series where you found this one.